Hi, this is Mike McCrease. Welcome back to Advanced Photoshop. And in this lesson we're going to explore the use of the crop tool, which is very powerful in Photoshop, and it's going to help you a lot in composing your pictures and changing the size and the composition to suit your needs. Let's start out by opening up an image that we can practice with. So these are all downloadable from Blackboard. So I'm going to open up the goldfinch image. And here is our image opened up, and you can see obviously it's a picture of this goldfinch sitting on a barbed wire. It's not real exciting because the photographer didn't take any extra effort to compose the picture properly. He's got the bird placed smack dab in the middle of the picture, which is really boring. And such symmetry is something that we try to avoid, but just because it lacks interest, and the human eye gets tired very quickly with a picture that is so symmetric. So we're going to crop this and change the composition to make it a little more pleasing. Okay, so let's play around with the crop tool a little bit to become familiar with it. Just press C on your keyboard and that will activate your crop tool right over here. And you see that you have corner handles and side handles on the image. I can crop this down like this, and then move my cursor inside the crop box and move the picture around like that. I'll press Escape, take us back to our original view. Now I can also enter a specific size for it to be cropped to. For example, if I want this to be, say, 3 inches by 4 inches, I can enter 4 inches in the width field, 3 inches in the height, and then my crop box will be 4 by 3 inches regardless of how tight or loose I crop it. Once I commit myself to this, it's going to be exactly 4 by 3 inches. Again, I'll just press Escape to take back to my original version. And let's go over here just to the top left-hand corner of our options bar, and there's a drop-down menu right here. I'm going to click that, and let's choose Original Ratio. Again, that takes us back to the original uncropped version. Let's talk a little bit about composition. One very common compositional tool is referred to as the rule of thirds. If you've studied photography, you're probably familiar with this. But with the rule of thirds, when you're composing an image, camera or otherwise, you mentally divide your image area into thirds, both vertically and horizontally, and use those resulting lines and the intersection of those lines as compositional aids. And this example right here, you see that the photographer has placed the horizon line of this seascape right at, or actually just a little bit below, the upper third of the image. And then the bow of the boat is placed right next to the left dividing line. So he's using the rule of thirds to help him compose the image. You'll also see that on the stern of the boat that it's placed just to the left of the right division line. So he's using the rule of thirds to help compose his image. Another classic method of composing an image is the use of the golden rectangle, or sometimes referred to as the golden mean or even the golden section. And this is a method that dates back centuries. The ancient Greeks used the golden mean to design the Parthenon. And the golden mean is an irrational number, and the way it works is this. When creating a rectangle, you would first define the length of that rectangle, and then you would multiply that length by 0.618, and that resulting number would then be the height of the rectangle. Then, using the height of the rectangle, you would create a square inside of that rectangle. In the area outside of that square, it creates another rectangle which has the exact same ratio as the overall rectangle. And you would take that second rectangle, create the square, and then the resulting rectangle of that also has that same height to length ratio, and it can be subdivided an infinite amount of times, and this is referred to as the golden rectangle or the golden mean. The golden mean can then also be used to create a series of triangles which can help you compose the image. And this is a technique that goes back centuries. Many classical artists and classical architects have used this technique, as well as contemporary photographers. The golden mean can also be used to create spirals by creating arcs from the radius of the resulting squares. And you can see how this photographer has created the spiral to compose his image. Now, back at our bird picture, when I click inside of my work area with the crop tool, you'll see that by default it is set up for the rule of thirds, which is going to help me compose my image. And on the options bar at the top, you'll see that you have a drop-down menu which lists the rule of thirds as your compositional aid. You could also choose a grid, diagonals, a triangle, series of triangles based on the golden mean, or the golden ratio itself, or the golden spiral. It's a little bit faint, but you can see that right over there. I can also press O on my keyboard to toggle through those different compositional overlays. Back over in our upper left-hand corner, where we see our original ratio, if you click that drop-down menu, you see that you can choose a variety of presets, such as a 1:1 ratio, a 4:5 ratio, 8.5 by 11, and so on and so forth. Let's choose the 2:3 ratio for our image. And you see that our crop box is now a 2:3 ratio, and in a ghosted out portion along the top and the bottom, you can see the part of the image that would be cropped off if we committed to this at this time. So let's use the rule of thirds to help us compose this image. I'm going to move my cursor inside the image, and I'm going to move the image so that the bird lines up with the right division line. I'm then going to click and drag on the upper left hand corner of our crop box and drag that down. Now I'm going to have to go back over here and move my bird like this to keep it along the left hand side of my image. So I'm using the rule of thirds to help compose this image. One thing I can do too is I can change the angle of the image. Right now the bird is sitting on this perfectly horizontal line made by the barbed wire fence. I think it'd be a little more exciting if that were at a slight angle. So in my options bar, I'm going to find the Straighten Image tool. Click that. And I'm going to click and drag a line about 5 degrees, about a -5 degrees, like this. And then you'll see that it rotates my image exactly 5 degrees. And if I need to, I can rearrange my image to make certain that all of the image is displayed inside the crop box. And then once I'm finished, I can just press Enter or Return, and there is my cropped image. And I think you'll agree that this composition is much more pleasing than the original one. One feature that I forgot to mention was the Delete Cropped Pixels option in my options bar. When it is selected, once you press Return, it is going to delete all the pixels that are falling outside of the crop box. If it is deselected, it will retain those pixels, so it gives me a little bit of play there, a little bit of gives me a little bit of a safety margin if I need to make a change to it before I actually commit to that crop. For example, let me just kind of redo this image here. Click inside it again. Use the rule of thirds to compose the image. Drag the upper left-hand corner. Align the bird to the division line. Then I'll go to my Straighten tool. Drag a -5 degree line just to kind of give it a little bit of energy to the picture. And I press Return. And then let's say that I go to the Selection tool. It's going to prompt me to crop the image, so I'll click on Crop. And then if I go back to the Crop tool and click inside the image, you'll see that I still have those original pixels left. So we haven't deleted those original pixels. And this is non-destructive editing, which means that I can always go back to my original image if I need to. And these are practices that we would like to maintain when we're using Photoshop. Now let's open up the Keystone JPEG image. This one's going to be a little more challenging. Here we have a picture of a museum in San Diego, and because the camera was tilted upwards when the picture was taken, the sides of the building slant inward. That's referred to as keystoning. You'll also notice that the roof line is slanted. We want to correct those errors, and we'll use the Perspective Crop tool to do that. So we're going to make certain that our Perspective Crop tool is selected, and I'll draw a selection over the entire image, and you'll see the little grid lines appear. I'll take the upper left hand corner and I'm going to click and drag that in. And what I want to do is I want to make certain that the edges of the building, the side of the building here, are perfectly parallel with the grid line, the nearest grid line. They're kind of faint, but you can see them. I'll come over here to the top right one, drag that in. Now as you drag these in, you'll see that it's pushing the one on the opposite side out a little bit. So you may have to go back and forth a time or two to adjust those. Again, making certain that the grid lines are parallel to the side of the building. You'll also notice that because the roof line of the building is slanted, that the grid line is not parallel to that. So again, I'll go to this upper left-hand corner, this handle, and I will drag that up until the grid line is parallel to the roof line. Now, as a result of doing that, we've got a blank area up here at the top where we have dragged the crop tool outside of the image area. So I'm going to take the center handle and I'm going to pull that just straight down, just like that, just until this top corner is back inside the area where we have some pixels. And then I just press return and my image is perfectly straightened up. Now let's press F12 on your keyboard, and that's going to revert this picture to the previous saved version of it. And I'll show you another method of correcting perspective. And quite frankly, this one's a little bit better than using the crop tool. When I use the crop tool, it permanently changed those pixels. And in this case here, I will retain the original image. So I'm going to go to my background layer and I'll copy that just by pressing Control J. And for the time being, I'll turn off my background layer. And I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to turn on my grid. I can press Control or Command and apostrophe, and that turns on my grid. Then I'll go to my free transform tool. Control T. And I'll hold down the Control key and click and drag the upper left-hand corner outwards like this until the building is parallel to our grid lines. I'll go to the upper right and do the same thing. Control or Command click on that handle and drag it out the other direction. Now you'll notice that it is pulling the other side back in, so I'll have to go back there and pull that out some more and make enough adjustments until it's nice and straight. You'll also notice that our roof line is still slanted, so I'll take the handle on the upper right and I'll pull that up until that roof line is perfectly parallel. My sidewalk is a little off there, so I'll come to the lower left and Command or Control click and drag that down just a little bit. I don't want to crop off that sidewalk. I just want to make certain that it is perfectly straight. And then I press Return or Enter, turn off my grid, and there's my finished image. And what's nice about this one is that I've got my original image right here. In case I've made some sort of mistake, I haven't destroyed the original pixels. Again, this is called non-destructive editing, and this is the preferred way to work. We've got just one more exercise to do, which involves the Perspective crop tool, and that is going to be where we correct the perspective of a photograph of a painting. So I'm going to open up Perspective JPEG. Here you see a picture that's taken at an angle, and we would like to see the picture as though it were viewed from the front. So again, I'll go to my Perspective crop tool and I will just click and drag a selection over the picture, and I want it to be cropped to this bamboo outline. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit better here. What I'm going to do is go to each corner and I will click and drag that corner to the respective corner of the bamboo picture. This only takes a few seconds, so if you make a mistake, once you commit to it, you can always undo that and try again. Okay, I've got my four corners repositioned, and I'll just press Return or Enter, and you see that the perspective has been straightened up and we're looking at the picture head on. So send me all three of those images on Blackboard, and then we'll move on to our next topic.